my question, and it's an open-ended question, perhaps. It's been barely 24 hours since it was announced the leak of the Supreme Court ruling that suggests that Roe versus Wade might be overturned.
Right.
And given all of the work that you've done with the pro-life apologetic and the work that you've done, I'm curious a couple of things. One, what is your reaction to this? Two, how should we as Christians respond? And three, how should we prepare for the potential for Roe to be overturned in several weeks?
Well, there's a lot there, and we might even, after we're done answering you, bleed over into the next hour and talk a little bit more about that, Robbie and I, because I want to hear his take on this as well. Now, this is going to sound funny until I explain it. I had mixed feelings. Now, regarding the legal issue itself, in this draft that Judge Alito has delivered, which looks like it's a form of the final decision that is supposed to come out in June, this indicates that the court, the SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the U.S., is going to throw this back to the states. And the reason is, and this is very important, is that the Supreme Court never had appropriate authority to make this judgment based on what the Constitution teaches. Now, what's really important here is that Alito et al., and on that list there are Kavanaugh and let me just look at my notes here. Barrett and Thomas, obviously, and not Roberts. Interestingly enough, he doesn't seem to be part of the coalition. I don't know what it's going to look like when they finally sign off. But these are the conservative coalition. They are not saying that abortion is wrong. They are saying that abortion is not protected by the Constitution. So we do not have an example of judicial activism here. We have an example of a constitutionally conservative approach using the Constitution to do only what the Constitution can justifiably do, legally do. And any other thing that's outside of the purview of the U.S. Constitution, that falls to the states. And that's what the Constitution says, even though it's consistently ignored, that particular part, by the federal government. Okay? So on the merits of the constitutional question, one, I'm really happy because it's now going to throw this to the states, and there are lots of states that will ban abortion as a matter of principle because abortion is the unjustified taking of an innocent human life. That's also going to be good because that means there's lots of human lives that will not be taken. Now, there's still states, standouts like California or Illinois or New York, and New York and California had pro-abortion statutes before Roe v. Wade in 1973. Well, they're still going to have the pro-abortion statutes. They've actually passed statutes now preemptively to really strengthen their position as a state. Okay, more power to them in a certain sense. That's the purview of the states, at least at the moment, as opposed to the Constitution. Now, it may be that someone can construe a 14th Amendment challenge to even states' pro-abortion laws, equal protection under the law, but that's down the line. All these guys are doing is judging on the narrow question of whether it's a constitutional right to get an abortion, and this is absurd, and it's been absurd since 1973, even in spite of Casey since then. And this is what they're claiming. And people on left of center like the ruling of Roe and Doe, because there are two rulings that were kind of side by side. But they like it. But that doesn't mean that it's good constitutional jurisprudence. And so I'm glad that there is a move back to letting the Constitution do what it can do and not make it do things that it wasn't supposed to do. And so that's all on the good side. But I'm bugged that Politico leaked this. That is illegal, and it is the very first time it has ever happened with regards to a pending decision by SCOTUS. This is all coming out in June. That's the standard way this is done, and they should not have jumped the gun. Politico wanted the scoop, and there's nothing good that can come out of this kind of thing because it undermines the legitimate process of the courts doing their business. And this is a conservative perspective. Yes, the news favors my view. That's not the point. The news should not come out when it's not appropriate for it to come out on things that are private with the court until they're willing to deliver. And I hope they get prosecuted because I don't want this to ever happen again. And I think it undermines the integrity of the judicial process of SCOTUS. And we have too much undermining of the integrity of the rule of law in the United States already. We don't need any more of stuff like this just because Politico wants a scoop. So that's my two-phased response. I don't know if you have more to add to that, Robbie.
Well, I was thinking that, how should we as Christians respond was this first question, right? And again, I think this is great, like you said, because it's going to save lives of hundreds of thousands and millions of children.
Right.
But how should we prepare was the second question.
That's right.
Right? How should Christians prepare? And I really think that depends on what state you live in. Because there's going to be different rules for each state if this actually gets given back to state law. And so if you're in California, you might have people coming here in droves to have abortions. Whereas if I'm in Arizona, it'll be illegal there. And so I think that's an interesting way for Christians in different localized positions. We would have to prepare differently as the body of Christ. Maybe there needs to be more adoption emphasis here in California. Maybe Christians need to be more proactive about, hey, we can help out if you're struggling. Maybe, Save the Storks needs to double up their efforts here in California, and Illinois, and New York. And so how do we prepare is a great question.
So, we have two children. Both of our girls are adopted, but people ask us, Robbie and Sean, what country did we adopt them from? And I always, I know what's going on, but I always ask them, why, well, from here in the U.S., why would you say that? Well, they say most adoptions, it seems to me, there's so many from out of the country. I said, yeah, you're right. Why do you think that's the case? And they say, I don't know, is it cheaper? I said, no, it's not cheaper. It's a lot more expensive. And they say, why would they do it? And my answer is the accurate answer, because we abort so many children, there's no children available for adoption.
That's so sad.
And that's why they go outside of the country. So what I think what might happen here, Robbie, to your point, is that this will hopefully open up more adoption opportunities in those states that, well, in any state, more adoption opportunities for people who want to adopt children and give a home and give a chance to these children. So we'll see. But also that means if there's going to be something, even sidewalk counseling kind of thing, insofar as it's allowed, there's restrictions now to that. And I'm not sure the subsequent effect of an overturning of Roe on those kinds of restrictions. We'll see. I don't know, but certainly they can do sidewalk counseling within a certain distance of the doors of, say, Planned Parenthood. Maybe that needs to be beefed up in the states that are going to provide allow abortion, and so, or maybe more care provided for single moms who now in the states where abortion is not allowed and they're not able to travel. Now they're going to carry to term and they need help. And so that's what CPCs do. There are actually more crisis pregnancy centers, last count, in the country than there are abortion clinics. And there were a lot more, and abortion clinics have been closing down at quite a fast rate because of pressures of various sorts, sometimes legal. And so consequently, what this means is it's not that we're not willing to care for these kids. We are willing to care. We're coming out of our pocket for it. So I don't know if that helps, Sean. We just got 2 minutes before we're out here on this hour. What do you think?
No, I very much appreciate your thoughts and your perspectives as always. They're excellent. I think there is an opportunity for we as believers to show God's love, exactly what you were talking about. I think there's some opportunity to step up and visibly provide more support where support is needed. So I think, from my perspective, I think we need to prepare to show the love of Christ and continue to, and I know you've done that, Greg, and others have, continue to put our money where our mouth is and live our convictions. So,
and there still is a real important place for pro-life apologetics, because there's lots of states that are going to continue with their abortion laws, their pro-abortion liberties. Yeah.